It's now 3 o'clock here in Denmark, which means it's something else in a lot of other places. So let's just get started. You're here. That's the important part of it. You can see my screen. And if there's questions, comments, go to the Q&A section and add your ideas there. So what I wanted to cover today is how you can simplify your migration journey. What's the ability to make the journey easier? And that's what we want to talk about. A little of the migration, why migrate, pipelines, and how to get started. I know this is something that comes up with a lot of questions, and I guess this was also part of the things that we covered in the partner discovery session a couple of weeks ago about what is it that you should be doing when you're migrating. Do you want to do a one-to-one migration, or do you want to redesign your integrations? And I think in general, I really prefer the way about, well, you want to redesign. That's the one where you get most value from. But it also have a number of challenges. It is more expensive. It's more difficult. You need to have the right resources, skills, etc. to able to leverage this. And that's why, at least with our tooling, we see that this a one-to-one migration is the faster, cheaper option, at least for now. You can obviously argue what's in the long term, what makes sense, what is it that we want to achieve in this. But that is our main focus, make one-to-one migration. And I guess it is not all or nothing. You would do the one-to-one migration for all the scenarios where it really adds value. And then for the part where you don't really, you just you redesign those, either because the systems is changing or whatever, and that is the differences you need to look into. Let me see. Good. EDI, it is one of the big topics of this, and hopefully we can get it into the chat. So if you're doing EDI migration, it is obviously one of the bigger topics in migration. We'll not cover it really a lot in today's sessions, but you can sign up, and then in next week we'll go through a lot more about how we have done EDI migrations, what are all the different components in this. And I think use this as the basis for understanding the main flow, but there's a lot of specifics we won't go into today. But see you on that session. Why do you want to use the Figaf tool in your migration journey? It is free to start using the tool in your migration journey. And this obviously close to free, I guess, has a lot of value, making it a lot easier for you to get started, deploy, and run it. It's easy to deploy it in your BTP accounts and use the credits for that. So we do have other deployment options, but the BTP is just so much easier because you already have access. It has all the services, and it's plug and play. And then what we believe is that once you have started exploring the tool, it's really easy for you to upgrade to the paid version, either the DevOps or the migration edition. And when we are talking migration, so today I'll cover how the Figaf tool can work for the migrations. But we'll also cover, but you should also be mixing this with the SAP tool if it works and simplifies the journey. And I think that is a lot of this thing about being pragmatic. What is it that solves the problems fastest with best requirements? Questions, comments, please put them into the Q&A section. That's how it works in this tool. So whenever we talk about any migration, there is a lot of steps that is involved in this. And this is either if you're a consultancy or if you're a customer, you need to somehow span this whole process. Here I've listed the part where Figaf's tool can help you in this. And obviously some of them is our migration assessment. We'll go more into details about all these things later. Our POC, when you're working, you need to, or before you start out a full scale migrating your 2000 interfaces, you need to have a good idea about what is it, how are you going to manage this, how are you working with all these different scenarios. When you're migrating, there's obviously the migration part, that where we can take ICOs and migrate them. There's the DevOps part, and XSLT testing, all these things that just simplifies the journey all the way to you have fixing bugs in the things that you have in production. That is the scope that we wanted to cover in this. Questions so far? Just put them into the Q&A. I'll try to cover them. And Michael, did I forget anything? Good. When we look at the offering, we have these two main components, which is the migration, which is like I write one time, but it's one time per interface that you need to go through here, or per customer or whatever. But it is a limited scope that you'll be using for this. So here we have our assessment, we have our test data, so you can create test data on the PI system, run them on the iFlows, and then you can compare the results. We have an overview of this, managing the migration, which I think is really important. You have one source of truth, because I've seen a lot of places where they're going through Excel sheets and saying, oh, the next one we want to migrate is this ICO, and going through this. With this, we can show you how you can actually simplify to have one source of truth. And then we have the ICO migration, which is the part that takes all of your integrations and move them or convert them in a different way, in a better way. Along the same line, we also have the DevOps. This is the continuous operating tool that moves everything into your productive system, managing everything, governance, everything that you expect from a modern enterprise setting. We'll cover that in a different session, so stay tuned for that. Good. We also created this blog series on migration, and here you will find a lot of our resources on migration, what it is, what are the different components that we have in the tool, what is it that you can do. We have installation guides, how to get started on the tool, and I think this is quite a good place, at least to understand our views on the migration. It's not complete, I guess it never will, but this is an evolving topic that we will be covering. So you can see the link here in the tab. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is this migration overview. This is really a good place for you to understand what you have migrated, what you have tested, what is in production, so you can follow the full development scope of all your integrations. And this is just something that simplifies your landscape and this. And we can see here both have classical scenarios, ICOs from multiple different systems, so it comprehends everything. You can see what are the migrated objects that we are using with this, and we can see how many test cases we have, what's in production. So this is the part that replaces your Excel sheet for managing these things, and we even support what you would normally recommend is going through some different waves, where I would say in wave 1 we would migrate these 10 interfaces or 20 interfaces, depending on what's the scope of your integration, where you can then go in and say, okay, these 3 ICOs, they are in wave 1. You will then assign a tag to that's called wave 1, and then you can do filtering here based on the different waves, and it just simplifies the ability to understand what is going on here. This is free to use, and something that makes the journey a lot easier. The next thing we want to talk about is the assessment. This is our way of creating an assessment, and I guess the history of a lot of this is we started out creating a test tool, then we found out to do different things, and that well, we started creating a test tool. Then to understand this, we needed to have a good understanding of the what your PI was doing at that point in time. Then we had to do changes on the PI, and that has been an evolution we had. And because we had all of these links, it was, well, possible for us to create a report that just gave you a lot more details about your integration. So this report is about understanding what your current PI system looks like. What are all the different details of this? And obviously, if you run the SAP assessment, obviously combine it, figure out what's the best details that you can get from this. But I think one of the key aspects that this is providing is, and I think we will see it here. So here we can see we have the sender systems, we have all of the different informations about this, and we have for each of the different ICOs, what are all the different receiver components, everything included in such a way. And this makes it easier for you to understand what is going on and see your landscape. So it does not come up with a judgment about what can be migrated. So it does not give you this estimate. We are considering what we can do to simplify the reading of this, because it is a comprehensive one. There is a lot of rules that you need to look into to handle this and figure out how you can simplify this journey. And I think this is a bit older. We have added a lot more to it since this time. So it's not a comprehensive, it is your job as integration architects, consultants, to really figure out what is it that our client wants, what is it that we can deliver to them on this specific scenario. And that's what we wanted to cover in this landscape. And then, yeah, use the pivot tables in Excel, use a BI tool to handle specific scenarios, where you can go and say, okay, do we have the same mappings in a lot of different scenarios? Then obviously it would make sense to consider, can we migrate in a coherent way, same way, where do we reuse mappings, etc. So something about splitting, which places do you use the function libraries, what are some of the problems with migration? Good. We also went in, and this is also an evolution, so we're working on a customer project and they said, okay, so we have this problem, we have these SFTP channels, they are using archive in the PI, but that's not available in CPI or in cloud integration. How do we actually handle that? And that's obviously something of a problem. And we could obviously go in specifically for this scenario and go and do some custom coding. But instead we went for the more global, generic way, and I think finding something that actually enables you to resolve this question for all of your different customers, for all the different knowledge that you have. So this was what we called tagging rules. And the idea here is that you can go in and create a tagging rule for a specific scenario. This could be, if you have this SFTP adapter, are there any specific problems with this? And if there are, they would then be dragged out to the report. You would have a column here that says tags, and then you can see what's going on, what's the important things that we need to look at for these to work. So that was why we created it. Questions, comments on the assessment and understanding what is it? What is this job that you are supposed to be doing for handling the migrations? Just give you a few seconds to write something if there's something that's important. It's a good idea to have it all in one go, otherwise we'll also have time at the end. Okay. good. Pipelines. I guess this has been getting a lot of bad rap, and this is SAP's open source project to handle migrations. There's also other alternatives, like Code 10 have an alternative approach to handling this. But the idea is to separate message processing and retry logic, delivery, all these things, and have more reusable artifacts. It's tested by SAP. And one of the things that I think is quite interesting about it is that it continues being updated, and I guess it goes out like in March last year, and now they released version 10 of it, simplifying some of these different things. So this was the old approach. Now they have changed it to just have 2 queues, simplifying the operations, and you just put in a message in a queue. It has all of the receiver determination, processing, all the logic built in just one go, and then you can handle it there. And yeah, it will then figure out where to deliver it, what's going on, and then once it's figured out, it will deliver it to a different queue, and in this queue you then have an iFlow that picks up the message, figure out what's the mapping we need to use, what is the receiver configuration that we want to use, and then it's able to deliver this. And I think this is something that can simplify the effort of the migration, effort of managing these things, and everything that needed in that process about building reliable integrations. And it is open source, so if there's things you like or don't like, you can go and change them. But it is pretty cool that it is updated, and there's probably going to be a few more versions of it before it's completely there. I think a lot of the challenges with it we can handle with the Figaf tool. So let's see. When we get into migration, here it becomes much more fun. This is where the Figaf tool really simplifies your journey, and then you can obviously decide whether or not you want to use it for your use case. So you say SAP's tool works fine, you won't then use it. Here, this is our approach about simplifying the journey. If you're going for our migration editions, you got 10 free migrations, so we generally recommend that you go through migrating some of the scenarios with the SAP tools, with the Figaf tool, and then you compare the result. If it gives you the value for handling the migration, go ahead, use it. If not, use the SAP tool, use the Figaf tool for testing. It is up to you, and I would definitely recommend that you go through this, because it's important to get as good as result as possible. So the general way the tool works is ICOs and receivers. So we pick the ICO, fetch all the details, all receivers, routing, build, convert communication channels, mappings, and then we generate iFlows that can handle all of these different components. So it is one coherent way that you are delivering this in. We have a lot of specific functions, but I guess the main thing is that we can obviously say it works better, but I think I would recommend that you run both SAP and Figaf tool, compare it, and then see how much it is reducing the effort. It is fairly quickly to get started with the tool. It takes 1 to 2 hours. I'll show some places where you can learn these guides later on. But it just simplifies the journey. And some of the smaller mapping details that we have gone through based on customer inputs, like, oh, we have a problem with this, then we can find a way to fix it. Sometimes we can do it within a couple of days. Other times it's like, sometime. But our idea is to make it as easy for you to work with the migrations. That's our goal. Questions, comments, please put them into the Q&A. Then I'll try to answer those also. for instance, yeah, some of the things we have is if you have JCO or RFC lookups, we convert them into a Groovy function, and then you can easily add a function to write those Groovy functions. But I guess there's a lot of these smaller nitty-gritty things that's really important once you get into the migration journey. There's a lot of important things there. So we also support operation mapping. So if you just want to say, okay, I have this operation mapping, I want to migrate it into an iFlow that I already have. So if you have a template iFlows, you can just take an ICO or an operation mapping, map it into those landscapes options. So I think this is one of the things that would enable you to either use your own templates for reprocessing, or if you are on a 7.1 system, that's probably also one of the things that would enable you to migrate scenarios with that. Questions? EDI artifacts, I would recommend that you check the Meet. There's already a comment on that, and we see quite a lot that already signed up for this. So we will go more into details about how we see this. Obviously, we're leveraging the same capabilities, but there is some differences because it's a more complex framework here. I would obviously love to say that we would solve all problems that you would run into, but obviously there is going to be things that would give you some problems that you would run into, etc. in these things. But so here's something. Actually, I think we did fix the Java mapping redesign. Or the Java mappings, we do it the same way as SAP does, which I don't really believe is the best way to deal with it. Cool. Now it seems like all the questions come in. Yes, we will have a live demo soon. That's what I love most. Security concepts. What do you mean with that? I think I just put it in here. If you're talking about, so we have a question also about specific folders. We leverage the SAP's platform. So obviously all the iFlow, all the artifacts is handled by the Figaf tool. But you obviously need to have the adapter that is supporting these things from a CPI perspective. Some things we can do, I think multi-file channels, I guess you would probably need to do some work around to ensure that scenario works. So how's the tool better than the SAP one? I think this is some of these smaller bullet points that we have here about supporting pipeline concepts, creating all the artifacts you need, better communication channels, migration that you can customize it so it works with your scenarios. I would say a better layout for your iFlows, and also when you get into multi-iFlows. But I'm showing you a demo in a few minutes. I just need to talk about the last part. This is about testing. So obviously when you're talking about testing, it is important, and I've talked with many customers like, okay, now we have migrated everything, now we need to test it. It's like, please do the testing as a part of the project, not wait to after you get started with really working on this, because the easier and the earlier you are going to do this, the better it's going to be, and the faster the delivery process is going to be. So if the developers can test easily in the beginning, it just reduces the risk with the migration projects. So that is why we believe you should test And the testing obviously makes it easier if you are working in different areas. That's a good question here also about this. If we recommend to use specific technologies for improvements, I don't think that we could do any really useful information. So I know the SAP assessment have some modernization topics, but I think you probably also, as an integration architect, would know the same topics that you have here. And there's another. Oh, there's another question. Yeah, so we do not support value mappings in our migration journey. I think there's something from SAPs to do that. And yeah, we do not support security artifacts as PGP encryption. Because yeah, how would we get the keys, etc. And it's some of those things that we have. And I guess also if you're coming and say, okay, we are migrating this communication channel, how do we deliver it? Our good friends at yeah, so the main focus is taking PI messages, run them on the integration suite, check that they are looking the same, and once they are, we can compare and ignore the timestamp. And our good friends at CBS had used it on project. This was the Chimera story that we have seen a lot on, and really good to work with these guys on it, and also see how they could simplify the project, because I guess a lot of businesses like just migrate my integration and then we can do testing later. If you move this testing and automate it, it just becomes easier as a part of your delivery process. Good. This is the last slide before the presentation or the demo. So where do you run it? So the main focus is, and the place we normally recommend that you run the Figaf tool is in your B2P Cloud Foundry. It uses a Postgres database. It's a service that is hosted in your B2P account. And then we have 2 Docker images that you just deploy with the Cloud Foundry tool. You connect it via Cloud Connector to the on-premise PI, and then that's just an easy way to get started with this. And then users would obviously work both in CPI, cloud integration, and in the Figaf tool, depending on what are the different tasks. And it costs around 300 euros a month in BTP credits. Obviously, it depends. We have seen cases where they had huge integration suite systems that required a lot of, or PI systems with a lot of data that did require a bit more resources than this. Okay, now it's time to demo. And if everything works out fine, let's hope this. Okay, so the main focus is yeah, so obviously with deployment it is Docker images, so you can also run it in your own BTP or Docker images. We just see that BTP is an easier one because it's leveraging the SAP integration suite user or BTP user concepts, but you can run it in a Docker image locally with Postgres. It's a few bucks if you want to host it. So it's a lot cheaper, but you need to handle some of these setups yourself. Okay, so the idea here is this is our cockpit. This is where we can manage the full migration journey on. So the first thing I want to do is I want to fetch some data from my PI system. So I have something for my test cases. So I'll create a test case for today. And 2, 4. And we can also give the partner details, and we can select, so we can select either the coming messages or we can select some messages that have already been processed. And we have 2 messages here. Let's take those. And the idea is we'll then connect to the PI system, fetch all of the data that is related to these. And we can now see we have 2 incoming messages and 6 outgoing. This is because it's a split scenario. It also works with simpler scenarios, but I just wanted in one demo to show you as much as possible. And that was the goal with this. Good. So now we have created a test case. The next thing we want to do is we want to migrate this. So to migrate it, we will select a package. It's already done up here. We will go in and we'll create a name of an iFlow. And we can then select the profile. We can use the B2B if it was a B2B scenario. The local processes is if you don't want to use the pipeline, that's our best view for handling these things. You can go check it and preview what the resulting iFlow would look like. So this is the type of iFlow that you have. And do notice there is some differences between the BPMN IO that we're using to display this and what you see in Integration Suite. So we try to make the UI look better in Integration Suite. So we could also have used the pipeline all here. Here you can specify the partner. We regenerate all the names. We use a single XSLT scenario for this, so we can see here the XSLT that's going to be generated for this. And we can see all the mapping of channels. We can see our mappings that we have here. Here we can see and we can decide whether or not we want to convert a user-defined function to Groovy, or we want to use the one that has been migrated as a SAP PI function library. And here we can then see some of the potential challenges and something we need to check on these things. And this is something that you can configure in these XSLT also, and something in the tool. All of these components is taking place here. So I will deploy after migrate. I will just need to do a check. And now I can migrate. And this will then take to migrate all of this integration, create all the artifacts that we need for handling such a landscape. So we can see it's creating the iFlow and deploying them and triggering, and then everything is done now as a part of our migration journey. We can obviously go in and see what we have created, and just look at one of these iFlows here. We can go to the Integration Suite. Hopefully it's still running. There was some performance issue earlier. So here we can see what's going on in the iFlow. We can see everything that is happening. So if we are here in our tool, we can go and say we don't have any test cases for it. We can then migrate our test cases. We can select here, we want to migrate the test cases. We'll add the test cases to a test suite. And then we can say, okay, where is it that we can fit these specific details about our message processing? And we have found that. And now we can go in and we can then run it. And this would then run it in the Integration Suite and send the messages through. And hopefully it's working. iFlow not started yet. So maybe that's a part of the whole journey about getting the Integration Suite to start. So let's just look at the monitor. But all the artifacts is created. Let me just see here if it's still not running. But yeah, that's just a bit unfortunate. So I did have an earlier test case here, so we can see here what was going on in this results on the same kind of iFlow. We can go in here, view the result. We can see that everything was processed successfully except this one, where there was a diff, and it is then just something about some payloads that was different, and then I had added some changes in my mapping. But here you can easily see all the different components that's a part of this, what is being how we're working with this. We can go in and ignore this element. It's already ignored, so I guess this is just me that needs to go in and compare it again. Then it will ensure that it still works, but we also have a different element in it. So obviously there's some work on figuring out validating these test cases, go in and ignore certain elements, and once you have done that, you will go in and then say, okay, let's update it. sorry, here. Here, go in and update it, and now we have a new case, new test case where we have all of these elements included in one coherent message that works and can simplify the journey. Let's see, maybe it processes, maybe not. I guess that's always the fun thing about running something. So let's see, here is it. So now they should be started. So let's see. But there's definitely something that is not working as I would want it to do. Questions on the demo? This is obviously high level. It's a fairly successful example of these things. You would probably need to go in and configure and modify some of the configuration channels that if we have missed something in it. But the idea is that if you have done that, you can easily go in and just say, okay, let's ignore these elements and see what's going on with it. So something is happening. We can go here and see what if it has processed things. So it seems like there is something going on with some retry processing on it. Maybe we have made some changes that we were not supposed to be doing, but this makes it a little easier to manage the journey for the migration. Questions, comments, please add them into the chat. I hope you liked that demo and you could see the benefits of simplifying the migration with that. And the idea is obviously a lot of this information is kept here. So if you want to re-migrate it again, you can go in and make such modifications later on, re-migrate it, check it, or see what's going on. So we do have a video guide, which is this one, Figaf in your migration project, where there's a 1 hour installation, a 1 hour how to use it in migration, and one for using for DevOps. This would give you like 70 to 80% of the usage of the tool. But there is, if you are going into specific EDI use cases, testing, it is going to be a little steeper to learn how to use the tool. But you have fully functioning test cases that you can go through and explore. You can use in here I'm showing how to install it in the BTP cloud, so you don't need to interact with your on-premise systems, your enterprise architecture. Everything can be run fairly easy in the cloud, making it easier to understand what's going on. Cool. Other questions? So let's see here if the test case I created here, if it works. No. So and I guess if you also get into it, some of this places of the different scenarios can be a little challenging to figure out where these messages has been processed, what's going on. What's a linked test cases, what is the different scenarios. So now it seems like it is processing this one a little better. So we can see we have at least found some of the messages that were failing in this. But obviously here we should go in and understand why this specific iFlow is failing and what is going on in this this landscape. So that is part of the things you need to learn when using the tool. In general, I would recommend that you get started with a migration project like 10, 50 interfaces, depending on your landscape. Try to move try to understand all of the different goals in this. How do you manage this? How do you involve stakeholders in go lives? How do you ensure you can roll back? All of these different things that should be a part of a good project should obviously be in this, because with that information you can then be much more sure that your full migration will work, will be simpler than just going and randomly and migrate. And I think that's an important part of it, understanding more about what's going on in this. The DevOps is also one of the things I do recommend, and so if you want one single use case for it where it adds value, it is our virtual tenant. This is where you can reuse dev tenant also for QA without sacrificing governance. So you can do the same kind of transport, the same kind of testing in this virtual landscape. This just makes it so much easier for you to deliver integrations at the level that you want. And that's one thing that could save your tenant and be worth the transport option. There's a lot of other on the governance framework, that's a lot of topics on the configurations. We have a Git repository and I guess 10 different tools in one go. So if you just look at the documentation we can create on the integration suite system, it's quite impressive. A Groovy editor, all these things just speed up the delivery process, whether you're an end customer or a SAP consultancy service integrator. Get started today. There's the link here that I normally recommend, that this is the best way to explore the tool. Get assigned a few hours from your boss management to say, okay, let's explore what's possible with the Figaf tool. Will it work, or how will it work on our system? What are the complexity? And then once you have done that, we can go in and you can easily use it for the migration. Either if you have it in your BTP account, you can just upgrade, or you can go with get a full license for it. But it is set up so you don't need to pay in advance. It's only once you see the value, which you should be able to do within 4 hours. If you run into problems, we have a support you can write, and we can try to help you with some of those areas. And then we have time for Q&A. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed talking to you on this, and as you can see, it's one of the things that we really enjoy talking about. I hope you will join our session also on B2B migration, where there's more specific things, and here Kishore will share some of his ideas about what he was learning, or what he learned when he went through this B2B migration project with the Figaf tool. So that was what I wanted to cover. Any questions, please share them in the Q&A and I'll try to cover them. Yes, the cost. So the cost is 100 euros per ICO that you migrate. So it's a one-off cost. So whenever you go to and click migrate, you can do the check where you can see what's going on, what's the effort, or what are the different problems that it can see with it. Can we migrate it? And then when you press migrate, you will then be charged for a license, and then the cost is then per number of ICOs that you migrate. So 100 euros for the first 200 ICOs, and then 80 euros, and it becomes cheaper the more you migrate. So that's just the migration tool. It's a one-time fee that you pay for it. And then we obviously recommend that you also get the DevOps depending on what you want. But it's I guess from a developer perspective, it really makes sense to get it, because it just saves a lot of your work. and avoid having too much governance placed on your side, because you can auto-generate all of the different things. Is that what you wanted to hear, or is this clear? Sure. Any other questions? Good. 2 minutes more if you have more questions. Otherwise, we'll continue. Have plenty of time. But I hope you can see the value and how this can simplify it. Please explore it. It is free. It just costs you a couple of hours to see what's possible, and then you can actually get started using it for the migration. And you got 10 free migrations, so it's really worth considering. And I guess maybe just when I look at this iFlow here that we migrated. So part of this is you have all of this. So this is the externalized parameters you have for this iFlow. Not 50 different interfaces that you need to configure, but 2. Probably we could improve that logic, so it would be a little better, but that is a lot simpler, a lot easier to manage. There was more. Cool. I would like to have the auto scroll feature on on these things. Anything else? But yes, we talked with some customers earlier that said that the SAP tool had, I can't recall, a fairly low chance of success. I think we are a lot above that, and I guess also when you look at the iFlows, it generates something that looks much more congruent with a CPI one. So this is the pipeline concept like flow that it creates, and if you just look at a normal iFlow, it looks like this. So this is our standard way of doing iFlows, where you have everything in local process, one process for each, making it easier to see where something is going on. And we can also add a GMS queue to this to do some retry if it fails. There is fully functioning trial versions available. So this is just the Figaf migration edition that you can use for this. And go try it out. You can use create test cases the next year, so you have a year worth of it. And then I would say the main thing is, if you just get this assessment report, that's the part that would give you a much better understanding of your current PI system. With this is easily worth these 4 hours you spend on exploring the full tool, giving you much more details for your migration journey. So go try it out, check the videos here, explore the tool and see what's possible with it. Cool. I'm still here, so if you have some questions, put them into the chat and I'll try to cover these things.